To encode Bill.com API documentation. Start by understanding the basics of API encoding. Encoding refers to the process of converting data into a format that can be safely transmitted over the Internet. When working with the Bill.com API, you will need to encode your API requests to ensure that your data is properly formatted and secure. First, review the Bill.com API documentation to understand the required encoding format. The Bill.com API uses JSON encoding, which is a lightweight and easy-to-read format. Familiarize yourself with the JSON data types and syntax to ensure that your API requests are properly formatted. Next, choose a programming language to use for encoding the API requests. Popular choices include Python, Java, and C#. Regardless of the language you choose, you will need to use a JSON library to handle the encoding and decoding of your API requests. To encode your API requests, start by creating a JSON object that contains the required data. For example, if you are creating a new bill, your JSON object might include the bill date, amount, and vendor information. Use the JSON library to convert your data into a JSON string, and then encode the string using a suitable encoding method such as base64 or URL encoding. When encoding your API requests, be sure to follow best practices to ensure that your data is secure and properly formatted. Use secure protocols such as HTTPS to transmit your API requests, and always handle errors and exceptions properly. Additionally, be sure to validate your API requests to ensure that they are properly formatted and contain all required data. Here is an example of how you might encode a Bill.com API request using Python. First, import the required libraries, including the JSON and requests libraries. Next, create a JSON object that contains the required data, and then use the JSON dumps method to convert the object into a JSON string. Finally, use the requests library to transmit the encoded API request to the Bill.com API. By following these steps and best practices, you can ensure that your Bill.com API requests are properly encoded and secure. Remember to always review the Bill.com API documentation to ensure that you are using the correct encoding format and following all required guidelines. With practice and experience, you will become proficient in encoding Bill.com API requests and be able to integrate the API into your applications with ease.